I first knew that I guess I first thought that I was gay when I was in middle school, so maybe around 6th grade, so I was probably about 12, and started to, I think it was really when, hormones start coming, and I had thought growing up that my hormones had, I thought I was going to be attracted to a woman. It's just the way I was raised, of course, as I think most kids are, and to have opposite sex attractions. But in the 6th grade, I started feeling, those feelings that you get around that age for other boys in my class, and sort of slowly came to the realization over the next few years, and arrived at the fact that I was gay when I was about 15 or 16. Growing up in a Christian home definitely made the fact that I am gay difficult when at the time of realization. I had I had been taught that it was a mortal sin, and that I had been taught that it was a mortal sin, and that there was really no place for it. It wasn't something that was. It wasn't really even a viable choice in the sense. I mean, I didn't know anyone who was gay. It really wasn't represented on television in any way, and so I really, really internalized it, and I actually was very anti-gay. I preached against it. I told, I said that I would have, if you had asked me then, I would have said gays are going to hell. I was, Bible-toting. I carried my Bible to public school and sort of used it as a shield for just such a thing. It was my own armor against my own homosexuality. As I was dealing with all this at that time, it never occurred to me that I could bring it up to anyone. My parents, my sister, anyone at church, it was not an option. I did not think at that time that I could talk to anyone until I was about 16. I think as I was processing the fact that I was gay, I did not feel, it was never an option to me that I could talk to someone about it. It was never an option that as an adult I would be gay. It felt very much like a phase to me, and I thought it's because I didn't play sports, or I wasn't good at sports, or I don't like to hunt with my dad, and so, but something will come about, and that will, flip the switch for me, and I'll be able to be straight. And so not only did I feel like I couldn't talk to anyone, I didn't feel like I needed to, because it was going to go away. And I would pray for it to go away. I mean, I wanted it to go away at the time, certainly, but never felt that. I mean, talking to anybody was just not even an option. I don't know if I necessarily felt ashamed or that my 12-year-old self would have recognized it as shame. It really, to me, just felt like this just isn't done. It just isn't the way that things happen. I'm gonna grow up. I'm gonna marry a pretty blonde girl, and I'm gonna have 2.3 kids, and I'm going to have a farm, and I'm going to do this, and so it sort of didn't. I suppose that if at 12 I was more sort of in touch with emotions, I would identify it as shame. But yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily say I felt ashamed at the age. I think I was more just confused. I really felt. Just because I felt confused about my own feelings, because it didn't feel like they were what I was supposed to be feeling. My mom did ask me, I gotta think about it for a second. My mom did ask me in high school if I was gay. I don't remember exactly how she worded it, but she did inquire as to my sexuality in some form, and I immediately denied it. I think she actually asked me if I was seeing or whatever a guy friend of mine who is straight and was straight, and I immediately shut it down and would have never, I think, in the moment. Well, first of all, I wasn't, so it made the no very easy, because the question was more specific about him, and looking back, it was definitely a little bit of a door opening. I mean, I think parents always know, or usually know. I don't know what the result would have been had I said yes. Sort of can't fathom that looking back. But she did ask, and I didn't tell anyone. I mean, it wasn't a. I said no and moved on. I wanted to get away from it as quickly as possible, not knowing, even myself. I think I wasn't fully there myself. I wasn't fully at terms. I hadn't fully come to terms with. I wasn't fully comfortable with the fact that I was gay at that time. I still sort of thought, well, that blonde girl and those two dogs are going to come any day now, and then that will be the thing that makes this all work out.
Waiting for just that right.
It was Jenny. It was Jenny from Forrest Gump. Not sure why, but that was the one. When I decided to come out to my mom, I decided to sit down and write her a letter. I was 22 at the time. I was living fully independently, had my own place, had a car, and felt that if there was a very negative reaction to me coming out, if I was disowned, if I was never spoken to again, that I would at least I would be okay on that front. I wouldn't need to have. I was no longer financially dependent or anything from my family, so it made it okay in my mind to do it then. And I wrote a very basic letter and said that it was something I had known for a while and had really just fully realized myself. I don't want to say come to terms with it, because I don't know that that's quite the right phrase, but I was just finally comfortable telling everybody. And so I wrote her a letter and mailed it. I think my biggest fear when I came out to my mom was a sort of complete cutting off. I was living alone and fine, and I didn't need her to put food on the table or a roof over my head. But you don't want to have, regardless of how close you are to your family, or you don't want to be completely cut off from them. That's just a basic instinct, I think. And I was just concerned that it would be a complete, you are out of my life. I was also concerned that she wouldn't let me. I had not told my father or my sister at that point, and I was concerned that it would do damage to those relationships, and it would sever those relationships as well. And that was the big piece for me. I had gone to high school and sort of been in college with friends who, both gay and lesbian, who had varying levels of disownment from their family. A girl that I went to college with she was completely kicked out, stopped paying for school, and she had to really. She was able to get help in another way, but I did see it happen. And before she did that, she actually sort of she went back in the closet. She lied to them for a while and said she went back in the closet for their sake. She said that she wasn't a lesbian and that she, and that to me just sort of wasn't an option anymore. When I did come out to my mom, there was no longer lying to them or completely avoiding the topic, which was really what was happening, was no longer an option to me. I knew that I wanted to, I wanted to get married someday, and I wanted to have a family, and I wanted them to be a part of it. And I didn't want, for that to start, for that process to start, I needed to come clean, and not even come clean, that sounds like I'd done something wrong, but like I just needed to tell them the truth and say, I am gay, and it wasn't a particularly long letter, I don't think. It wasn't, it just was sort of stating the facts of where I am. When my mom got the letter, she emailed me. I think I still have the email somewhere, and she said, she told me she loved me and that she needed to process it. And I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I love you, I need to process this. I'll be in touch with you when I can, and when I feel like I can talk to you," she said, or something to that effect. And so I waited. I was conscious of the fact that, it had taken me 10 plus, well, about 8 to 10 years to feel comfortable saying it to her, and that I needed to allow her the time to process it fully, even though I think she already knew, but she hadn't heard it from my own mouth, or my own letter, as it were. And so I waited. I think my mom finally either called me or got back in touch with me, I would say maybe 4 to 6 months after, and suggested that I come visit, and we went to see a show together, which was kind of comical because it was a musical called The Producers, and it was not one that I would recommend seeing when you first come out to your mom. It doesn't portray the gay people in the best light, and it was a very awkward evening of theater going for the both of us. But it certainly opened the door, and we didn't really talk a lot about it, but at least for me it was, I knew that we weren't through. I knew that she wasn't writing me off or getting rid of me, or however you want to say it, and that we were on the way to having a relationship again. When I first came out to my mom, and we had the period of silence where we didn't speak for a while, once we did start speaking again, we really had to. It wasn't starting from scratch, but she was learning something new about me, and I had to learn what limits I had in really talking to her about my life. It was a while before she felt comfortable, I think, learning if I was dating somebody or seeing anybody or anything like that. And she, I'd say it took about it took us about 5 years to really get to a place where I felt comfortable bringing someone that I was dating to meet her. And I mean, she was always very gracious towards them. But it definitely was, it was an awkward few years of dancing around something that was, the elephant in the room, to mix metaphors. And we, it was the relationship wasn't great because she didn't want to talk about it, I wanted to talk about it, and where do you go from there? I mean, when you're in your 20s and it's a big part of, I think, most people's life in their 20s is who they're dating or their social life, and that was not it wasn't something that we really could discuss. And but she was once, I'm not sure what the switch was. I don't know if it was meeting. I think honestly the switch for her was probably meeting my first boyfriend, who I brought home, and sort of seeing that our relationship was I don't want to use the word normal, but it was normal. It was we were just like any other two people dating that just happened to be two guys, and one of them her son. And I think I think the light sort of went off in her head then that, okay, this isn't just some, bad 80s movie that I've seen or something like that. Like there's a real hope for love in his life, in my life. It sounds obvious, but I think once you see that it's not, once you see that it's not whatever terrible thing you thought it was going to be, or whatever you've heard or imagined it to be, and you realize that these are just two people, and it was a pretty dramatic shift for her. I mean, she came around, and I started feeling very comfortable using the term boyfriend, which was a huge thing for me. I mean, I think that it's been for me the little things like that have sort of almost meant the most. The fact that she on a phone call will say, I'm married now. She'll say, "How's your husband?" or "How's your boyfriend?" or use his name. That was huge, and in a way that really surprised me. I think one of the funny things about a parent having to come to terms with a child's sexuality, or a child having to come to terms with the parent's inflexibility, let's call it, is you're still dealing with the typical parent-child stuff, and then you just have this extra layer on top of it. And so it's funny because I think, in a way, the frankness that that it now exists in my relationship with my mom, because of the way in which I came out to her, and how it did sort of open the book for this really very, now very what's the word I'm looking for?
Open?
Oh yeah, the way it opened the book for this very open line of communication between us has sort of improved the way we have that normal parent-child riffs, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was, we have those. She's my mom, I'm her son, and we don't have a perfect relationship, and that which has nothing to do with, for reasons way outside of my sexuality and her feelings toward it. But I do think that the way that our line of communication, because of me coming out to her, has made that better. It's made us, it's made me certainly very honest with her, and really realize how important it is to just be honest with her and about whatever it is. When I wrote her the letter, I think it was probably 50-50 on who was getting off the easiest on the, for me personally, I think I'd only maybe come out to a handful of, no, that's not true. For me personally, I hadn't come out to anyone that big in my life. I mean, anyone in my family, and so I was nervous, and I almost was afraid to, I was afraid to be in the room. I wasn't afraid she'd, grab a baseball bat, but I was nervous that her reaction would be more than I could deal with, and I lived about an hour away from her, and I wanted us both to have the space, and there was something very powerful for me about dropping the letter in the mailbox, and because there was it was no longer in my hands, and there was a sort of finality to that I was able to sit with for a little bit, and then she was able to sit with upon receiving it, and then the time it took for her to sort of process it on her end. My relationship with my mom now is sort of, with regards to me being gay, really, it almost, I'm very thankful for this. It really doesn't even it doesn't feel like an issue anymore. She has embraced me. She's embraced my husband. She has been very warm towards both of us. I mean, I'm really amazed at how far she has evolved on the issue, and really come to a place where I no longer feel like the odd man out in the family for this reason. I mean, it may be because I live in New York, or it may be for another reason, but it's not, I no longer feel like the black sheep because I'm the gay son. And I do think that my relationship with my mom is a big part of that. And certainly the rest of my family too. I mean, my dad has been great, and my sister to some level. But my mom has really paved the way for that. I think if she had cut me off, ultimately, I'd be okay. I would not, I'm fortunate enough to where I wouldn't be on the street. A lot of kids aren't so lucky, and it would really just be, there's things that happen in your life where you want to pick up the phone and call your mom or your dad or someone in your family, and I really think it's sort of in those moments where it would be the most not bittersweet, because the most upsetting. It's in those moments that it would be the most upsetting for me. And I want I want to have children, and I want them to know her, and I want them to know her husband and her family, and I think that I had readied myself for there to be no relationship, and I'd sort of come into it with this steely resolve of I'm gonna if this happens and I'm disowned or I'm whatever, I'm gonna be fine. And I definitely had to back off of that too, because my fur was bristled a little bit. I was ready for I was ready to be shunned. I was ready to be cut off or whatever. I was put out, and I had to sort of back away from that, or ease back to recognizing that she isn't doing this, and that she is coming to terms with it. She's dealing with it in her own way, and I just had to be I had to be patient and let her get there, and she got there. I think for parents who are Christian, who have whose children come out, I think that it's. I mean, the biggest piece of advice is don't wash your hands of them. I mean, it's which sounds almost silly to say to me, because I can't imagine. I mean, I don't have kids, but I can't imagine a kid doing basically anything that I would, rid myself of them for. But I think, I guess it's to be patient with yourself, and to know that for parents, my advice would be to be patient with yourself. Hopefully your child will know that this is a process for you as well. But it is something that you do have to go to. You will have to move on an issue if you want to have a relationship with your child. And it doesn't mean you have to give up your beliefs. It doesn't mean you have to, you don't have to dance in the streets, but you will have to move on this, and you will have to come to a place where your relationship can exist with the fact that you are a Christian and your child is gay, and there has to be a common ground, and it's really easy to find.